king of German mercenaries.
Chapter 241 Assassination Farce. The emperor led his army southward, stopping and starting, holding banquets everywhere, and spending money like water, which surprised everyone. You know, Maximilian I was a famous poor emperor. When did he become so generous? During the journey, the emperor would entertain the nobles along the way and warmly invite them to follow him south with their private soldiers. At this time, everyone suddenly realized that Maximilian I wanted to win over more thugs, which was reasonable. In any case, the Swiss region is still nominally part of the Holy Roman Empire, and has not yet become independent in fact, let alone in name. Therefore, when the emperor invited them to dinner, many nobles along the way were willing to give him face and eat and drink. Anyway, it was not that they had to lead troops to support the emperor just because they ate his food. Only some small nobles could not resist the emperor's empty promises, such as promotion of titles, and brought people to join the emperor's army. When they reached Che, the capital of Graubünden, dozens of small nobles along the way, with thousands of private soldiers, had already joined the emperor's troops. In fact, the emperor's real purpose was not to take this group of people to fight Rome, but to ask them to help manage Graubünden in the future. After all, these people are local snakes, and when it comes to their familiarity with Graubünden, the emperor can't catch up with them. With their cooperation, the emperor will be able to have stronger control over the local area after occupying Graubünden. Most of those who were willing to follow the emperor were small nobles who were not doing well in their local life. In Graubünden, these people were excluded by the powerful forces and had almost no room for advancement. Therefore, they decided to take a gamble and follow the emperor to Italy to gain fame and glory. The situation in the Graubünden region is very complicated. It is closest to the Austrian Tyrol region controlled by the Habsburg family. Many places in the east have been infiltrated by the Habsburg family. These small nobles who are willing to follow the emperor believe that with the emperor's successful coronation in Rome, the Habsburg family will surely become more powerful. In the future, they will definitely annex the Graubünden region. Therefore, if they surrender to the emperor early, they can also get a good credit. In the future, when the emperor controls Graubünden, they can also get a good position. Of course, there were also those who were not optimistic about the emperor, so naturally there was no team following the emperor. Moreover, there were more people who were not optimistic about the emperor than those who were optimistic about the emperor. In addition, there were many people who were just watching. When they arrived near Che, the emperor invited representatives of the three most representative alliances in the Graubünden region in Che, the Alliance of God's House, the Grey Alliance and the Alliance of 10 Districts, to a banquet in the Habsburg family military camp outside the city and to discuss the matter of borrowing troops. However, the emperor's army stationed outside the city caused panic among the various forces in the city of Che. Therefore, no one dared to come when the emperor invited them for the first time. In desperation, the emperor activated his backup plan and personally led dozens of knights into the city to visit the bishop of Graubünden in Che and many senior officials of the three alliances. Seeing the emperor condescending to come and invite them personally, everyone finally felt relieved. In their opinion, the emperor's personal invitation proved that the emperor really valued the march to Rome. And this also proved that the emperor was not a threat to the Graubünden region for the time being. Moreover, if the emperor personally came to invite you, and you didn't go, it would be a lack of respect. If you don't give face, the emperor's army is outside the city, and it might give him an excuse to attack the city. Therefore, the top leaders of the three alliances left the city one after another and rushed to the small town where the emperor's military camp was located to attend the banquet. The beginning of the banquet was peaceful. Maximilian I personally poured wine for some leaders of the three alliances and enthusiastically encouraged them to eat and drink. Even though they were at odds in private, on the surface, these nobles still had to pretend to be harmonious. However, they did not realize that the emperor secretly sent several professional assassins from the Habsburg family, dressed in aristocratic clothing, to blend in with the local guests in Graubünden. When everyone had finished drinking, the emperor thought it was time to start. So, he nodded to the assassin leader. The assassin leader was a Tyrolean, but he could speak the Graubünden dialect. The assassin leader, who was playing the role of a local noble in Graubünden, suddenly threw the glass in his hand to the ground, attracting everyone's attention. What the hell, what crappy wine. He's the emperor, and he treats us with this kind of crappy wine. And you still expect to borrow troops from us? The assassin leader had a fake beard on his face. He was probably drunk at this time, and his hair was a little disheveled. No one could recognize who he was. Moreover, at this moment, everyone had drunk almost everything, and many of them were drunk, making them even more unrecognizable. Everyone was a little stunned by the assassin leader's sudden outburst. Suddenly, the assassin leader raised his arms and shouted, defeat the Habsburg family, long live the independence of Graubünden. Then, the assassin leader drew a dagger and rushed towards Maximilian I. The people present were immediately shocked. Damn, they witnessed an assassination attempt on the emperor. So, the scene instantly became a bit chaotic. The two guards standing by the emperor seemed to be scared silly and didn't have time to react. They watched the assassin rush to the emperor and the assassin's dagger pierced the emperor's left chest. In fact, the emperor had been prepared. He wore a layer of 2/3 plate armor under his clothes. On the left chest of the plate armor, there was a pig bladder filled with pig blood. The assassin's dagger pierced the pig's bladder accurately, making a pop sound. It sounded like the dagger was stabbed into the emperor's body. Then, the emperor's robe was covered with blood. Originally, the play was considered a success. However, among the guests, there was a drunk young man who was fooled by the assassin and his blood rushed to his head, and he also wanted to assassinate. The assassin arranged by the emperor had just pulled out the dagger from the pig's bladder, and the emperor was still pretending to howl, when a young drunk noble from the Alliance of God's house also his knife and chopped him down. Logically, this guest should not have brought a weapon into the venue. However, this guy was a knife lover and hid the dagger in his boots, and the emperor's guards did not find it. At this moment, this drunk guy actually pulled out the dagger from his boots to assist. The two imperial guards really didn't react this time. They were so busy watching the assassin's performance that they forgot to pay attention to others. So, when the assassin arranged by the emperor retreated, the drunk young nobleman's knife also hit the emperor's left arm. The emperor howled again, but the previous howl was fake and not sharp enough. This time it was real, he howled in pain, sharp enough. The two guards of the emperor finally reacted, drew out their one-handed swords, and quickly repelled the drunken young man and subdued him. The assassin arranged by the emperor took advantage of the chaos to escape. However, his escape route had been planned long ago, and the emperor's guards on the road had been ordered to let the assassin arranged by the emperor go. Then, the only one left at the scene was the young local noble who was not sober-minded and followed the crowd to chop the emperor. The emperor was holding his left arm, twitching in pain and yelling from time to time. However, he was very happy to see the funny young nobleman jumping out. Because the assassin he arranged before was going to run away, otherwise he would be exposed once confronted. But if that was the case, without witnesses, the emperor could not determine that it was the local noble who wanted to assassinate him. But this funny guy who jumped out gave the emperor the best excuse. Because he was a member of the God's family alliance, it was simply the best excuse for the emperor. So, while enduring the pain in his left arm, the emperor secretly rejoiced. However, the emperor's condition looked very strange. To outsiders, the emperor was stabbed in the left chest and left arm, and the wound on the left chest was obviously more serious, with so much blood flowing. But why did Maximilian I only cover his left arm and scream? Was the fatal wound on the left chest not as painful as the wound on the left arm? Fortunately, this scene did not last long, and Maximilian I was carried away on a stretcher that had been prepared long ago. Next, the emperor would enter the stage of playing dead. Chapter 242, Going south to save the emperor. After Maximilian I was ready, he also informed Marin. In early May, when Maximilian I sent troops from Innsbruck, Marin also led 300 cavalrymen south to rescue the emperor. Of course, on the surface, Marin did not go to rescue the emperor, but to respond to the emperor's call, to surrender to the emperor, and to march into Rome with the emperor. If he really wanted to accompany the emperor to fight, Marin would be worthy of the emperor by sending an infantry phalanx. Because he was only the earl of a small country, and he had to guard against neighboring countries, so he naturally could not send out the main force. However, the infantry phalanx was too slow to move, and Marin knew that he was not going to fight this time. Therefore, he simply took 300 cavalry south. 300 cavalry, in terms of function, is no less than an infantry phalanx. Moreover, among these 300 cavalrymen, 200 were the newly formed Black Knights of Marin. The reason why Marin brought them with him this time was to train the troops at the same time. Because the Black Knights had just been formed and were still lacking in training. It wasn't that they didn't have fighting skills, after all, they were all selected from the army, and most of them were musketeers before. However, running and shooting on horseback, and maintaining formation and running half a turn, did require more practice. So, along the way, Marin supervised the Blackshirt Knights to practice shooting on horseback and running half turns while marching. However, because the number of spring-action muskets provided by Da Vinci was really limited, only 30 were delivered in the second batch. Therefore, the Blackshirt Knights now only have a total of 50 carbines, which are only enough to equip 10 people. There was no other way. It took Therefore, it was considered quite good that Leonardo da Vinci and several other craftsmen could make 50 spring-fired carbines. There was no way to expand production. Leonardo da Vinci once proposed to hire more craftsmen who were good at making clockwork to help make clockwork flintlock guns. But Marin disagreed at first because hired craftsmen would easily leak the secrets. Marin was already worried about the Italian master watchmakers he hired, so he sent spies to follow them every day, fearing that they would leak secrets. If he hired more craftsmen, he would not be able to keep track of them all. If you want to be safe, it is better to use craftsmen who are serfs. They are serfs and cannot leave at will, so they are easier to control. Unlike the original craftsmen, they are all middle class in the city, and even have the right to vote. They are all difficult to serve. However, it would take too long to train some talented young serfs into master craftsmen who were good at making clockwork. In the end, Marin chose a compromise plan, to go to cities such as Nuremberg and Milan and hire some craftsmen who were good at making clockwork. However, these craftsmen were only responsible for making the fine steel spring according to the requirements given by Leonardo da Vinci. They did not participate in other parts of the spring-fired flintlock gun. After these craftsmen made the spring, Leonardo da Vinci led a group of apprentice craftsmen to assemble the spring, steel column, flint, trigger and safety system, as well as the barrel and wooden stock with rivets and screws. In fact, the other parts of the clockwork flintlock gun are easy to make and can be made by ordinary craftsmen. Only the fine steel clockwork is more difficult to make. Leonardo da Vinci had discussed this with Marin, who also proposed the concepts of modularization and standardization. As long as the various parts of the spring-action gun are subcontracted to craftsmen who are good at making a certain part, not only can the quality be improved, but it can also be more efficient. Of course, strict process standards must be established. For this reason, Leonardo da Vinci led people to make a batch of vernier calipers, intending to use them for everyone. Especially for the barrel, Marin required that the caliber must be unified. Once the craftsmen hired to make fine steel springs are in place, as long as we get enough fine steel springs, we can assemble as many springs as needed to make spring-action flintlock guns. However, that was a matter for the future. For now, the Blackshirt Knights under Marin could only make do with the muskets. However, the musket was too heavy and unsuitable for shooting on horseback, so Marin had to first train them in the way of the later dragoons. The so-called dragoons were not the cavalry riding dragons in the novels, but just a group of musketeers on horseback. These musketeers rode on horseback to enhance their mobility. However, after arriving at the battlefield, the horses were all assigned to be guarded by people, and the musketeers dismounted and lined up, and their fighting style was no different from that of the infantry musketeers. However, during the journey, Marin arranged some Blackshirt Knights to use the only 50 carbines every day to practice shooting while the horses were running. In order to let everyone feel the musket shooting, Marin simply asked each Blackshirt Knight to carry a carbine and practice the musket version of musket shooting. 200 Blackshirt Knights, 50 people in a group, changed every day, took turns to practice and feel the musket shooting. Others practiced dragoon tactics from time to verify the tactics that Marin learned from the internet in his previous life, so that it would be convenient to form dragoons in the future. Because Marin planned to use the Polish cattle he bought to completely replace the draft horses. Therefore, in winter, there might be several thousand draft horses available. In addition to some that were taken away to breed with donkeys to produce mules, Marin really planned to select some draft horses to form dragoons. Anyway, there were no requirements for the dragoons' horses, except that they could carry people on the road. When they arrived at the battlefield, the dragoons dismounted and fought directly, leaving their horses behind. Therefore, Marin was fully qualified to train the musketeers into dragoons. During the journey, Marin asked the Blackshirt Knights to practice musketeer shooting tactics, and also asked the Blackshirt Knights who were not assigned carbines to practice dragoon tactics, providing Marin with examples and references for forming dragoons, so as to discover and solve problems. In addition to the 200 Blackshirt Knights, there are also 100 scouts led by Saul. This unit is not a frontline combat unit, but it is very important. Of course, in terms of horse fighting skills, they are much better than the group of musketeers selected by Marin. Because they were formed earlier and have been Marin's escort for a long time. In addition to learning half-baked reconnaissance skills from Saul, they also have to learn to use knight light swords to fight and charge on horseback. This time, Marin brought them with him to let them experience the mountainous terrain of Switzerland and train their vision and reconnaissance capabilities. After all, one day, Marin might bring a large army to Switzerland to help the emperor fight. Marin had a strong feeling that one day, he would lead a large army to compete with the Swiss mercenaries. Not only that, but bringing along 100 scouts can also greatly improve safety. Because, these 100 scouts also have people standing sentry at night, and there are quite a few of them. During the daytime march, there are scout cavalry standing sentry in front, behind, left and right of the main team of Marin, and each of them carries a few Chinese double-bang firecrackers designed and manufactured by Marin. As long as the enemy is discovered, a double-bang firecracker will explode into the sky, which can produce a very good early warning effect. In addition, these scouts already have certain fighting abilities, so it is perfect to use them for accompanying protection. In addition to the 300 cavalrymen, Marin also brought 2 Mongolian doctors, Morigen and Bader, as well as a large amount of alcohol, gauze and wound medicine prepared by the 2 Mongolian doctors. Although he knew that the emperor was faking an injury, he still had to act in a complete manner to appear more professional. Therefore, Marin brought all the necessary medicines. However, Marin did not expect that the medicine he brought would come in handy. Because Maximilian I was really injured. Chapter 243 Graubünden changes ownership. After the assassination, all the guests were detained by the emperor's men and were not allowed to return to the city. The next day, the main commander of the emperor's army, Count Heinrich von Fürstenberg, the commander who died in the Swabian War, took the opportunity to search for the assassin and took the guests who attended the banquet last night into the city. However, Heinrich von Fürstenberg entered the city with several thousand men. After entering the city, he immediately controlled the city gates and rearrested the local nobles who had been released to facilitate entry. Then, the local noble leaders finally realized that the emperor wanted to control the city of Cole. However, it was too late. Not only were the main leaders of the 3 local alliances in Graubünden controlled, but the Habsburg army, after entering the city, also strictly controlled all the city gates, prohibiting anyone from going out, and arrested those important members of the 3 alliances who did not attend the banquet in the name of hunting for assassins. Even the noble Archbishop of Chur was restricted in his movements. In this way, the main members of the 3 major alliances were either arrested or trapped in the city, and were completely unable to ask for help from the Swiss alliance. Moreover, in order to prevent the towns west of Chur from joining the Swiss alliance, Maximilian I instructed Heinrich von Fürstenberg to quickly divide his troops and march westward to seize several towns close to the Swiss alliance, without giving them time to react and the opportunity to contact the Swiss alliance. Similarly, the emperor also sent troops to attack the northern pass. Graubünden has a complex terrain, and is connected to the west and north by only a few mountain roads. It is precisely because of the inconvenient transportation that the Graubünden region has not been able to communicate well with other parts of Switzerland, and has not joined the Swiss Confederation. Maximilian I obviously also knew the terrain of Graubünden. He knew that as long as he sent troops to control several passes leading to the west and north and stationed a few thousand people, he would be able to resist the attack of tens of thousands of Swiss. It is true that the Swiss fought bravely, but as long as they were not confronted head-on on the plains, the Habsburg army could also resist them with the cover of the city walls. After all, the Habsburg army's combat effectiveness was also top-notch in the German region, but it was much worse than the Swiss. Compared with other princes, the Habsburg army was not inferior at all. As for the eastern and southern regions of Graubünden, Maximilian I was not in a hurry. Because sooner or later, these regions would be the fat meat in his mouth. Not to mention the eastern region, it directly faces the Tyrol region controlled by the Habsburg family. And in the south, it is separated from Italy by the Alps. Not to mention that the Alps are tall and steep, and the southern part of the mountain is the Duchy of Milan, an ally of the emperor. Therefore, there is no uncontrollable factor in the south, and no enemies will emerge to compete with the emperor for territory. Of course, Maximilian I was not without preparation. At the border with Graubünden in the east, he had already quietly deployed 5,000 troops, ready to attack the eastern part of Graubünden at any time. Moreover, the 1,000 soldiers that the emperor had sent to the Mustare Valley as advance guards should also take action now. Sure enough, on the agreed date, the Habsburg army, which had been waiting for the arrival of the emperor's main force in the Mustare Valley, suddenly turned against the local garrison, launched a surprise attack on the garrison camp and took control of the Mustare Valley. The local controlling force in the Mustare Valley, the 10 Jurisdictions Alliance, responded quickly and wanted to send troops to retake the area. However, on the same day, 5,000 Habsburg troops entered the 10 Jurisdictions Alliance-controlled area on the eastern border. The Habsburg family had actually infiltrated the neighboring 10 Jurisdictions Alliance for many years. Therefore, when the emperor's army entered the territory of the 10 Jurisdictions Alliance, many local forces cooperated and acted as guides. In this way, the eastern region was quickly controlled by the emperor's army. Only the southern region remained uncontrolled. However, the southern region of Graubünden is mostly mountainous, with few river valleys, and is the poorest and underdeveloped region in Graubünden. Anyway, as long as the 3 directions of east, west and north are controlled, there is no need to rush to control the southern region. Because there is no local force here. Once the other three directions are pacified, as long as a troop is sent over, this side can be smoothly controlled. The battles to control the western and northern passes were a safe one, because the passes in these two directions were built to defend against external enemies, without paying attention to defending against internal attacks. Therefore, when the Habsburg army appeared behind several passes, although they encountered resistance, they eventually fell into the hands of the Habsburgs due to insufficient defense behind the passes. The Swiss alliance in the west was too late to learn about the change of ownership of Graubünden. Several thousand troops were stationed at the passes leading to Graubünden. Moreover, Graubünden's request for help had never been delivered. Therefore, the Swiss alliance was unprepared for the fall of Graubünden. By the time they reacted, the enemy had already controlled the main traffic routes. All the allies had been destroyed, and no letters for help had been sent. Even if the Swiss Confederation was dissatisfied, it had no reason to send troops. Even if it did, it would cost a huge price to take down a few passes. On the other hand, the Swiss were in a hostile state with the Swabian League in the northeast. If they went all out to attack the Graubünden Pass, it might give the Swabian League in the northeast an opportunity to take advantage of it. Therefore, the Swiss decided not to take on the tough challenge of Graubünden Pass for the time being. However, the Emperor's ally, the Swabian League, would bear the wrath of the Swiss Confederation next, because, in comparison, the Swabian League was a soft target that was easier to deal with. When Marin arrived at Chur with 300 cavalrymen, the area was already controlled by the Emperor's army. At the city gate, Marin unexpectedly saw his former subordinate Bowen Gardner, who had been promoted to the commander of the square. Bowen Gardner was one of the 2 knights specially arranged by the Emperor to join Marin's phalanx. After learning the method of training troops from Marin, he returned to the Habsburg army, where he was highly valued by the Emperor. Moreover, Bowen Gardner, who had learned Marin's strict modern military training methods, trained an army that, apart from its combat effectiveness, was far superior to the army of that era in terms of military discipline and spirit. Therefore, the Emperor was so happy that he promoted Bowen Gardner and Hayder Basque, who had worked with Marin, to the position of phalanx commander. When Marin arrived at the north gate of Kull City, he happened to meet Bowen Gardner, who was in charge of guarding the north gate. When old friends met, they naturally exchanged greetings. Bowen Gardner still had a good impression of Marin, his former superior. Apart from anything else, the training skills he learned from Marin helped him to be promoted from a company leader to a phalanx leader, which benefited him greatly. You know, most of the phalanx leaders are barons. Only highly valued knights are qualified to be phalanx leaders. Obviously, because of his outstanding ability, Bowen Gardner became a highly valued knight, so he became a phalanx leader at a young age. Therefore, Bowen Gardner was very happy about Marin's arrival and warmly invited Marin to have a drink. However, as soon as Marin arrived, he heard that the Emperor had been assassinated, so he naturally had to show his loyalty first. After inquiring about the bad news of the Emperor's assassination from Bowen Gardner, Marin didn't bother to greet his old friend and went straight to the Emperor's mansion in the city with the Mongolian doctor and the medicines that had been prepared long ago. The 300 cavalrymen under his command were handed over to Bowen Gardner for placement according to the rules. Marin only retained a few powerful bodyguards such as Khan and 2 Mongolian doctors.